Hello guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm so excited today for the grace of God. He's brought me here and he's brought y'all here, and today I just want to talk about the Book of Ruth. You know, sometimes I wonder why in so many weddings the Book of Ruth is mentioned. Oh, your people will be my people. Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. And those are the words of Ruth. And she wasn't saying those words in a wedding. She was telling them to her mother-in-law, who basically was Naomi. And just going through the Book of Ruth, it has got only 4 chapters. Very short book. If you have time, please just go and read it. You can read it at a sitting because it's a very short book. It's basically just 2 pages. Now, as we start the Book of Ruth from chapter 1, it starts by saying that it was the times when the judges were ruling. And when you read the Book of Judges, you realize that that was a time when Israel was so corrupt. There was a lot of injustice going on and a lot of corruption going on, and the judges were the ones who were ruling the land. And so one time, in fact, even during that time, Israel would be taken over by other territories like the Moabites, Amalekites, those guys. Yeah, and the neighbors who were not worshippers of Yahweh. And you'd find that they were oppressed people most of the time during the judges ruling time. Okay, now then Israel got into a time of drought. So they're not only oppressed by their leaders, they're not only oppressed by their neighbors, but now they're also being punished by God because of drought. Because one of the ways that God used to punish his people was through drought. No rain, no food. And so you will be forced to humble yourselves. And there was this man from Bethlehem in Judea. He was called I'm reading the Bible, okay, so I have to look down. Anytime I look down, I'm reading something. He was called Elimelech. Elimelech had a wife. His wife was Naomi, and together they had 2 children. One was called Mahlon, Mahlon, and the other one was called Kilion. So they were grown guys. They were like, hey manze, apa kumumana, it's too dry, there's no rain, let's go to the land of the Moabites. So they moved from their home and they went to the Moabites land. At least waenda watafute venye life itakuwa your side. And when they reached there, you can imagine, even you as a person, if you decide to leave your country for another country, normally even for work, this is a whole different place. This is a place where they speak a different language. It's a place where they don't say, their cultures are different from your cultures. The way they speak, the way they relate to each other, their gods, it was all different for these people. So obviously, we can assume that it was not easy for this family to have moved from Bethlehem and gone to the Moabite land. But they moved. And then once they moved, the 2 sons got married to Moabite women. And at that time, the Israelites had been told by God, one of their laws, one of the things that God told them was they had to marry inside Israel. They were not allowed to marry women from outside Israel. And so the 2 sons, Kilion and Mahlon, they married women from Moabite. And the women happened to be Ruth and Orpah. Alright? So after some time, as they were living in Moab, the Moabite land, Elimelech died. And so Naomi was left there as a widow. 10 years after these men had married, they were not able to have children. But they also died. So Naomi has no husband and Naomi has no sons. I hope you're tracking with me. They left as a family, and now Naomi is left alone with 2 foreigners as daughters-in-law. and they had not given her any children. In those times, having children, especially sons, was very important because they would carry along the name of the family. And second, they were the ones to inherit what their parents had. Women had no status. It's not like today when inheritance can be given to a daughter. That time, there was no inheritance to a daughter, there was no inheritance to the wife. The one who carried along the inheritance was the son. So Naomi is left alone in this foreign land with her foreign daughters-in-law. It was a painful time. Eventually, Naomi hears that, kule home, the rains have come back. God has had mercy on Israel and the rains have come back and now there's food. So she decides, hey, mimi, najipanga nenda wapi narudi kwetu, basically. So she gathers everything that she has. She takes her daughters-in-law and then they start the journey. But on the way, she's like, yo, ni wawili, adios muchachos, go back to your homes, go get married, cause mimi siwezi hata waeka kwangu. As in, I can't go with you back to being a widow. It wasn't going to be a glam and gloss and glam. This was a very sad woman. So Naomi and Orpah decide, sisi hatukuachi, where you go, we are going with you. And they started mourning, you know, they're crying and they're sad about this whole situation. But Naomi is adamant. She's like, no, even if I was to get married today and give birth to a child, and this child grows old enough to marry you, guys would be too old to give me any grandchildren. In fact, right now, I'm too old to get married. But if I do, even if I had a child right now, then you'd be too old at that time to be married with my son, and that just in case. So the women were like, sawa. Orpah's like, yeah, okay, sawa, basi mi acha tu ni. Oh, they cry. And then Orpah decides, fine, let me go back to my people. Because these were women who were still able to get married. After your husband dies and you're still young enough to have kids, there was a possibility of somebody else marrying you again. So Orpah decided, let me just go home. So she went. But Ruth insisted. And she said those common words that we know. Where you go, I will go. Where you die, I die and be buried. Where your people will be my people and your God will be my God. Now remember, these are not people who have come from the same cultures. It's like somebody from, wild guess, Afghanistan and another one from Kenya. Your cultures are different, your land is different, everything is different about you all. But this woman, Ruth, decides, I am not leaving this one. So, Naomi akaona, this woman is not going anywhere. Sawa, twende. Now they go until they reach the Israelite land. And once they arrive, women who saw Naomi coming back, they were like, wow, have you seen Naomi? She's back, blah, blah, blah. But Naomi is like, yo, mimi nimepitia mashida, nimepitia mbaya, yani it has been bad. It has been bad. God has decided to punish me. Not only drought moved me away from my home, but then my husband is dead, my sons are dead, I have no children. And so I have no status. And this is a woman who's just left there, a widow and mother who's mourning her children. But she comes with this foreign woman and she tells the women around, and she tells them, do not call me Naomi, call me Mara. Now, where does Mara come from? Mara comes from when the children of Israel were moving from Egypt all the way to Canaan. On their way, of course, they were crossing the desert, and because they were crossing the desert, there was drought, there was hunger, there was thirst, and there's a place where they reached and they were so thirsty, and then kidogo they see a mirage of an oasis. So they ran, man, say, we've seen water, yeah, we are running. By the time they get there, they drop inside the water, they're trying to drink, and they find the water is absolutely bitter. And so they called that land Mara. Yaani ushaikuwa na kiu alafu mtu anakupatia nini? Shubiri. Something. As in, it was bitter. You're thirsty and somebody gives you vinegar. Yeah. So, the word Mara in the land of Israel meant bitter. And so she tells these women, Mimi, I don't want to be part of, don't call me Naomi, just call me bitter. because I'm bitter. God has dealt with me with so much bitterness, you know. So she goes and settles in her land. During that time, the land that she had, of course, now there was this thing called, in simple terms, I'd call it inheritance, but it wasn't really inheritance, it was redemption. If your husband died, then a close relative would come, have babies with you in case you don't have any sons or children. Then a close relative would come, have babies with you, and then the first son that you would give birth to would carry along the name of the deceased husband, so that that name is not forgotten. And I will come back to that in a few. So now, Naomi and Ruth are in this land and they don't have any food. People are harvesting. At that time, by the time they were arriving, people were harvesting. But of course, these are people who had moved Maju. Now they've come back and they were not farming, and the land probably is now just there. And those people who want to grab it are also many. So they don't have food. So Ruth tells her mother-in-law, okay, wacha basi niende niokote, let me just go pick up whatever the harvesters have left behind so that we don't sleep hungry. So Naomi's like, okay, just go. So she happened to land on Boaz's farm. And as she was speaking and picking, a rumor started going around. Hey, do you know this is Ruth? This is Ruth. Then the rumor got to who? To Boaz. Now we're getting to the juicy part. Now the rumor gets to Boaz, and Boaz realizes that, hey, this woman, she's a good woman. Her husband dies, and she follows her mother-in-law all the way. Ongeza, she's a foreigner, and she had a choice to go back and get married or go back to her parents, but she decided to follow this woman who has nothing right now to help her. So they acknowledged that it was a noble act that she did, and how she was taking care of her mother-in-law. So Boaz decided to acknowledge that and recognized her and favored her, and to the point where he told the farmers who are harvesting, the women and men who are harvesting, yo, now what you'll do while you're harvesting, acha mingi nyuma, so that she has something to carry back home. So yeah, by the time they were sitting, they went on and sat for dinner or lunches, and Boaz was favoring her and allowing her to eat on the table and even giving her food, carry home to your mother-in-law, Nini. So when she went back to her mother-in-law, who is Naomi, and tells her all the story, all the things that happened. No, this woman is just innocently saying, this is what happened. I happened to go to the land of somebody called Boaz, and this is how he treated me. So Naomi tells Ruth, Skiza, now, from now on, go to Boaz's shamba. Don't go to anybody else. And because people know your story, make sure that you work with the women who are harvesting, the women who have been employed by this Boaz guy, and make sure you're in their company, because anything can happen to you. And that was, you can see a mother-in-law who has concern over her daughter-in-law. So Naomi, of course, went on, and Boaz was also favoring her. And when Naomi also found out that Boaz was favoring her, she also remembered that, oh, Boaz is one of our kinsmen redeemer. Hey, so this is what you do. Vapoa, there's a celebration in Boaz's compound. Vapoa, look nice, put on perfume, put on your Sunday best, look amazing, and go where Boaz is. Then ensure that once everybody is sleeping and people are drinking and people are celebrating, during those times, celebrations, even right now, celebrations inakuanga company na nini, alcohol. So after Boaz has lewad kiasi and he's going to sleep, once he's gone to his tent, follow him and sleep in his tent. So Naomi akaambia daughter wake hivyo. Ruth dresses up nicely, she goes to Boaz's function, and as soon as Boaz is kidogo katipsy and he was in a happy mood, he goes to his tent, and his tent was somewhere huko ndani huko kakafiche kidogo. So he went and he slept. Ruth comes slowly, goes into his tent and sleeps right under his where his feet were, and then akajifunika na hiyo kablanket yenye Boaz alikuwa nayo. And she covered herself with that blanket. So in the middle of the night, something startled Boaz, and he woke up and he found a woman right at his feet. This was like saying, I have given myself to you. But Boaz recognizing Ruth, he asked, what, madam, what's up? So Ruth explains everything, and one of the requests that Naomi had was, aliambia Ruth to ask Boaz if Boaz can buy the piece of land. That was to say, can you redeem our land? Can you take over? Can you inherit what your brother or your relative left? So Boaz, recognizing what they were asking for, and of course he had already started liking this lady, giving her food, giving her extra things, extras zilikuwa zinapeanwa. He decides to do this. He decides to take some barley, because they were harvesting barley, and gave to Ruth, and then he left his tent early. But he told Ruth that, listen, there's another very close relative, closer than I, who is the one who is entitled to buying that piece of land. And so I have to go talk to him. And if he wants to inherit or to buy the piece of land, then I will let it go. But I will make sure that I will try. So the next morning, Boaz leaves very, very early before anybody else, because of course mtu akiona kama Boaz ametoka hapo ndani na Ruth pia anatoka hapo ndani, guys, it's a scandal. And this guy honored Ruth at that moment. He didn't take advantage of anything. He just gave her some barley and then sent her back home. So that same morning, Boaz goes to his barazas and calls the wazes and calls this other Kingsman guy, and he tells him, hey bro, there's a piece of land here that belongs to our brother Elimelech, and his sons have passed and nobody is there to redeem. Are you interested in the land? And the guy says, yeah, I'm interested in the land. So he says, okay, fine. If you're interested in the land, then remember that you will also have to take Ruth too. And he's like, nah, Ruth, Mr. History, I'm a foreigner. Tuliambiwa to stick into, so we stick in our lane. We stick with our Israelite women. This one is a Moabite. Staki hiyo story ya Moabite. Mimi wacha nifanye nini? Kama ni story ya Moabite, wacha tuikae. Then Boaz says, okay, fine. If you don't want this, then can I be the one who does what? Inherits. And remember, this is in the presence of the barazas and the elders of Israel at that time. So this other guy who was supposed to, imagine the Bible has not even mentioned his name. So this other guy who was supposed to be the Kingsman Redeemer gives up his right to redeem the land and redeem Naomi's land, and he leaves the mandate, or gives it up to Boaz. Now, what he did was he removed his sandals. The removal of sandals and giving it to the other person to redeem was an Israelite thing. In case I want to buy land, and the sign of a title deed was the sandal, giving out the sandals. It was like saying, my sandals have walked over this piece of land, but I now give it up to you as a sign to say where I walked belonged to you. Understand? So he gave the sandals to Boaz, and Boaz now became the one who inherited or redeemed that piece of land and redeemed Boaz. So Boaz and Ruth, they got married, and then they came together, and then they had a baby. Okay, now this is where the story becomes a happy story. Now they get married, they have a baby, and the baby is called Obed. All right, now this is another interesting part. Obed is born, but the women around the community were singing the name of Naomi, saying that God has favored you. Wait, let me just confirm what the women said. Oh, this is what they said. Let me just read it directly. This is what they said. Okay. The women say to Naomi, praise be to the Lord, who this day has not left you without a kinsman redeemer. May he become famous throughout Israel. He will renew your life and sustain you in your old age. For your daughter-in-law, who loves you and who is better to you than 7 sons, has given him birth. Then Naomi took the child, laid him in her lap, and cared for him. The women living there said, Naomi has a son, and they named him Obed. So now, Obed is given birth to. But the women did not go to sing all this praise to Ruth. They sang the praise to who? To Naomi. It is Naomi who got the redemption through her daughter-in-law who loved her so much. And they have described as they loved her more than 7 sons. The love that she gave her mother-in-law was more than the love that she could have received from 7 sons. And then the blessings that came after that. Then guess what? This Obed becomes the father of Jesse. And then Jesse becomes the father of David. And this David is the King David that we know today. And then it shifts to giving us the genealogy of this family. Now they start from chapter 4 verse 18 says, this then is the family line of Perez. You want to know who Perez was and the story of Perez and how it came to be? I think you should tune in for the next video next week. I hope so. I'll do an expose of Perez, but I want to read what it says first. Perez was the father of Hezron, Hezron the father of Ram, Ram the father of Aminadab, Aminadab the father of Nahshon, Nahshon the father of Salmon, Salmon the father of Boaz, Boaz the father of Obed, Obed the father of Jesse, Jesse the father of David. And if you want to see how that genealogy goes down up to Jesus, go to Matthew chapter 1. So anyway, that's the book of Ruth, and it's a beautiful story. There are details that I've left out because I can't put everything in this video. I've tried to expose it and speak out on it as much as I can, but go back and read it. I want to encourage you, if you've watched this video all the way from the beginning to the end, go and read the book of Ruth. It is amazing. It is amazing. So thank you so much for watching my video. Thank you so much for watching this story. I hope that you've enjoyed this. If you want me to do a more and more exposés of the Bible or whatever you want me to talk about, please leave it in the comment. And if you've not subscribed, what are you waiting for? It's just go subscribe, and then you'll be able to watch my videos all the time. Anytime that I post my videos, you'll be able to watch them. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for showing up. Thank you for watching all the way to the end, and may God bless you. Have a beautiful week. Peace.